Now I have to do talk on lightness as opposed to darkness. So I did a blog recently called The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which is actually a book which I loved when I was a teenager. I just loved it. I haven't read it for many years though, and I also remember that the main character was quite a difficult, confused and suffering person. So I don't know what the title actually referred to, I just can't remember, and I was so young when I read it. But I just love that title, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And the reason that I think that's such a nice title is I think that this is part of the problem in our society, is almost like we're taught to suffer. We're taught to think that life is complicated and life is something that we have to work really hard at. And if we're lucky and if we're fortunate, then we'll have moments of happiness. And what non-duality is talking about, the simplicity of what is, we almost feel like we're not allowed that, like that's too easy. That's almost seen as like a secondary, the moment, the present moment, what's happening is seen as secondary and something that is very irrelevant to experience. And the idea that there's freedom there, that there's this lightness of being, this freedom in the moment, seems to the mind, to the thinking mind, to the doing mind, unrational and too simplistic in a way. Like, how could the idea that the moment could have all the answers is like, what? How can the moment have all the answers? My mind, my thinking mind has all the answers and I'm going to work it out. And the idea that this moment has all the answers, not answers like you think, not words, not sentences, not ideas, but answers in there is no questions left, everything is known, but instantly. Or you could say everything's not known, but there's a freedom in that. But you could also say it's known because there's nothing that's out of place, there's nothing that needs to be questioned. The questioning only arises when you feel like you've lost something and when you feel there's something out of place, there's something that you lost. I was super lucky when I first heard this message, which was through Buddhism, and they talked about the present moment. I just fell in love with that. I knew what was being talked about, like my heart just responded to that. I knew that as soon as I put my attention in the present moment, there was a freedom beyond myself. But then I thought I couldn't stay in the present moment, which was true. Like, no matter how much effort I put into trying to be present, my mind kept pulling me into time again. And then it's not quite that. It's not that you have to be present, although sometimes the person practices that. Often the person practices that, and that helps settle the person. But it's seeing that your nature, your essence is always present. It's like a shift in perception. There's such a focus and authority given to time. And it's this realization that the timeless, which is your essence, which is right here, is inherently free. There's always a lightness, a freeness in experience, right in the middle of experience. So you might have loads of problems, like life might be being a disaster at the moment, like all types of problems. And when you think about the problems, everything is too overwhelming and you can't find an end to those problems. And it's important most probably to think about problems to an extent, but a small extent, to try to work it out and try and work out the best solution, but just to a small extent, but not live in those problems. So if we have problems, we're so consumed with them, our mind is always in them. But right here, you don't have a problem. Where is your problem? And it's like a reset. In every instant there is a reset. There is a freedom. Now this isn't talking about ignoring your emotions. Sometimes you might have to cry about your problems or let out emotions or anger or frustration. It's not about denying that. That's part of being human, and that's present too. That's here too, and that's what happened. But it's also this seeing that there is no problems here. In your essence, being connected to this essence that's beyond the human form, that's beyond right and wrong and good and bad, and difficulties and not difficulties. And it's a real shift realizing this. So today I would have what some people would call quite an intense day, but some people would say not an intense day. I had a close family member that had to go to A&E, and I was spending most of the day, nearly the whole day in A&E, and prior to that cleaning up because they were very ill, like cleaning up the mess from being very ill, then taking them to A&E and being with them all day. And then I came back, and as soon as I came back I started doing this stream. And the reason that I think that that's possible, that my body can adjust so easily to situations, is because of the awakening I had, where I saw who I was. So there's always this connection to something that's wiped clean, something that's innocent and free. When before, when I was identified, like there was like this elongation of my life, and I was always living in that timeline, and that timeline had all its importance, and it sucked all my energy into the timeline. So when there was a problem, I couldn't separate myself from that. Like I was just so involved in my life was everything. Whereas when this shift happens, there is this other connection to something that's always fresh and intimate and alive and never leaves. And this is the way life is meant to be handled. I think this is what's going to shift in humans, because at the moment I think that living constantly in the story of you is killing humans. Literally. Like, I think that the destruction of our environment comes from identification. I think the destruction of ourselves, the abuse of ourselves, the abuse of others, comes from mostly identification. Sometimes you can be abusive when there's not identification, but it's different. It's not coming from hate, but there could be, you might not mean to do it, or you might not know that your actions are doing this to someone else, or you might buy your clothes from an unethical shop or something, or like but it's different. When you're identified, there's this energy that's coming from hate. There's this energy that's doing things out of revenge or spite or jealousy or nastiness in order to hurt others. Sometimes we can be hurting others ignorantly, not knowing that we're hurting people. And I think that most of this comes from being identified with yourself, and so everything about yourself, everything about your life is what your happiness is. So if your life is going well, then you're happy. If your relationship's going well, then you're happy. If your job is going well, then you're happy. And then if any of these things don't go well, then you're unhappy. So everything's always based on your environment and what you have, what you don't have. And you really believe if you get more of the pleasurable things, more of the positive things, your life will be happier. Or maybe now you begin to question that and see that that's not true. You can be free no matter what's happening, as long as there's a connection to who you truly are, as long as there's a knowing, this energetic shift back to who you are, that you are this instant. If there's no connection to this, then you're going to be caught in the hurricane of life. There's no respite. The respite is here, right here. And I don't say this from, like you might, I'm sure a lot of people look at me and think, oh, she's so young, what problems has she ever had, or how does she ever know, wait till life tests her a bit more. But I don't say this. I say this having just come from A&E and spending the day with my sick relative, and also lots of other very, very sick people. And then I'm sitting here and I'm beaming away talking about freedom. And that comes from a connection to who you are. I'm not saying I don't have moments of losing my temper or going into a rage about something, but then there's this dropping back into who I am. I'm not pretending that I'm a perfect person. I have strong reactions or emotions or feelings come up, but it then comes up, like, you know, when you open a fizzy drink, like, pooh, and then here you are again. This is freedom. There is no doubt here. There's absolute conviction that this is freedom. And I openly admit that I can recondition myself better and be more and more balanced on the human level and be maybe less reactive if I have a big strong reaction about something. Like, I'm not attempting to say I'm perfect, but there is something that wipes you clean in every instant. And this is a personal thing that's got to be remembered, but it's not personal to you. But it's not something that anyone can teach you or anyone can do for you or anyone can give to you. So if you are having difficulties in your life and you think that someone needs to save you, it's not something that someone can give to you. It's your essence. It's remembering that essence. So on the human level, if you are suffering a lot and if there are a lot of problems, then you can, first of all, on the human level, move your attention back into the I am. And that means the sense of being, the sense of alive presence, that you are, this is. And you keep repetitively doing that. But if the emotions are too strong, then put your attention into the emotion and have an exploration of what you're upset about. And keep taking it deeper. So if on the surface you're angry about something, you can investigate that and see, okay, what's underneath the anger? Is it vulnerability? Am I afraid? And see if you can get as deep as you can. And then you can also see if there's any past imaginings that come up of past traumas or past life events. And you can explore that. And this is an exercise to do having had the awakening or not. This is something I still do. If I have a strong emotion about something that's stuck in my chest or something, I investigate it. So this is something for everyone to do, to investigate what that strong emotional reaction is. But then also seeing that that reaction is happening in a freedom that's here. This freedom that's right here, that's expansive, that's everything and nothing.